Hello again. Last year was an interesting one for TV. From The Last of Us to Velma, it was a bit of a mixed bag. And if I'm honest, I watched none of them. Netflix and Crunchyroll have been the drip feeds keeping me going. Pluto and Zom 100 are pretty great, Scott Pilgrim was awesome, Heavenly Delusion is very underrated, and Frieren is probably my show of the year. Clearly, I only watch animated shit and need to grow up. With all these great shows coming out, I went into October with two thoughts floating around my head. Holy shit, how is it month 10 already? And I really want Castlevania Nocturne to blow my balls off. Alas, like a child who wants a chalky milk but gets a glass of lukewarm water, I was slightly disappointed. I love the first series, and this second version was just good, not great like its predecessor. It has the great animation and fight choreography, but the pacing is sloppy and the characters are way weaker, which were the main pillars of strength of the original. And more importantly, no Alucard. It's a solid foundation for, spoilers, a second season, and I really hope this series can come into its own when that happens. But I'm not talking about it today. Today, we go back to an earlier, bygone era to talk about the first Castlevania series. I just recently rewatched it and this show is really strong. A great example of what video game adaptations can be when given enough creativity and hot, muscly men. But I don't want to review the first series either. Just go watch it, bucko. I know you have a Netflix account you haven't used for 3 months but still pay for. If the action set pieces can't convince you to set aside 12 hours or so to watch it, I don't know what will. Maybe Alucard will though, I don't know. No, I want to express a thought I had after I finished rewatching it. Does this count as anime? It's a pretty simple question, right? Yes or no, not like it needs a 10-minute discussion, well, shit. It's a philosophical quandary that I've been racking through my head when I'm not thinking about Alucard's cold, piercing stare. It's a topic we have to break down a little bit to give a half-decent answer to because this question is more complicated than it seems, and my brain is quite simple. The first thing is, what is anime? Well, it's a genre of manga or Oh wait, that's my browser autofill, hang on. Technically speaking, anime is any animation, just the Japanese word for animation. But that's not what we really mean when we say anime, is it? We mean the ooh-woos and the big sword fights and the jiggly bits and the calamari. When we say anime, we don't mean all animation. It's not a medium. People like you who call it a medium are stupid. Animation is the medium. Anime is a style of animation from Japan, just like how cartoons are from the West. To give some background, animation has developed differently in Eastern and Western settings, with America and Japan being the main pioneers of their respective region. And each movement has unique qualities to them, which we'll get to. When people refer to anime, it's a specific style of TV or film, or even video game in some cases, that adheres to certain aesthetic and structural conventions. Yeah, look at me go. And that answers the second thing, what makes something anime? In my mind, it's the visual presentation and writing that contributes to giving you a certain feeling when watching it, whether it be complete awe at the impact frames or the haughty when the boobs bounce. You just sort of know if something falls under that anime umbrella. In reality, the label has evolved to such a broad scale it's almost impossible to properly define. But for the sake of this video, everyone get out their Castlevania anime bingo cards with those two areas, cause we're gonna play a little game. Castlevania is a very interesting case of an animated show. It's a Western series, written, produced, and storyboarded in America, with animation done in Korean studios. So there isn't any Japanese connection in the production besides the property and the several Japanese influences. So why do so many people and websites call this an anime? The visuals are the most obvious answer. It's very Eastern in its art direction. Anime has a few key features that make it recognisable. Thin lines, solid colours and shading, detailed characters, painted backgrounds, and smaller details like the general composition and use of bare chests. Holy shit, Trigger. Castlevania fits the bill in almost all of these. The detailed characters of a Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust or Cowboy Bebop, the cel shading of a Full Metal Alchemist or Gurren Lagann, and the thin line work of a Death Note or Vinland Saga. Then apart from how it looks, the other key aspect is how it moves, the actual animation to go with the art style. Castlevania's animation has a very Eastern approach, with limited animation used in talking scenes, usually of static poses with moving mouths, and then Sakuga in action scenes, with drastically more detailed animation in shots that make me need a new change of undies every time I see them. Never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. The show uses less drawings in the exposition and character scenes, then shitloads more when Trevor gets his whip out, the kinky bastard. I mean, just look at this stuff. You can feel the passion oozing out of these frames. The care they've been given is immaculate. There's also great use of impact frames throughout the show, and very dynamic camera movements that generally characterise Sakuga. All that technical talk meaning, the show looks good. There are a few things that don't perfectly fall into the anime style. The talking with unique mouth shapes for different sounds rather than one repeated mouth flap, and the characters have more realistic proportions than the cat faces of many popular anime, like the sword art designs. But overall, the visuals feel very deliberately Eastern in style and animation. So we have a check mark in that box on the anime bingo card. Then we have writing. It's a bit difficult to pinpoint what specifies anime writing. There's a huge variety of storytelling within the style, clearly. If I had to tie it down somehow, I'd say it's the distinct experience of watching something that's Eastern compared to Western. One Punch Man, Attack on Titan, Love is War, they all feel like anime through their plot, pacing, and dialogue, and you pick that up while you're watching them. You've got your shonen, isekai, and harem, cliches, fan service, and character archetypes. All different pieces that make up the identity of anime's writing. And let's not forget the shitty dialogue and incessant grunting, as the great hero Goku himself once said, Oni-chan. Castlevania doesn't include a lot of the commonalities in anime writing. It does in one area, the overall plot structure for the first 2 seasons, with a band of heroes coming together to face a big obstacle at the end of the season, as well as the general incorporation of action. It sort of has that Kisho Tenketsu structure, but even then, that's not a hugely unique quality. Aside from that, the writing is very Western and far more realistic and mature. There's no anime tropes or bullshit, none of the fan service, crappy jokes, or using the power of friendship to beat up children. The pacing is usually very slow, with rough, natural dialogue that includes many Australian words, like shit and fuck.
So I'm going to get drunk on beer that's been brewed in an old sheep carcass, and then I'm going to stick my tiny penis in a dead dog I found in a ditch to make hay babies or something, because I am actually more stupid than mud.
That's how I talk. The characters are pretty grounded, with effortless chemistry that feels real. The pacing and flow is a huge factor here. It's slow and methodical. It takes 4 episodes for the main characters to meet. In any other anime, the parents are already dead, they've beaten up some dudes, had a training arc, and are well on their way to getting to the main threat. I personally relate way more to Trevor.
Would you please leave my testicles alone?
So, in that category, no. I don't think Castlevania classes as anime. Fuck, no bingo for me. So, what does this make Castlevania? Is it an anime? The whole quality of the show is just too based in Western television, so no. I personally don't really think so. It's more of a Western anime if I had to give it a name, or it could need a new name entirely. The writing is such a strong part of Castlevania that it's impossible to ignore. In some ways, the non-anime writing is a strength. You get all the great Eastern visuals without any of the annoying anime bullshit. A more grounded Western interpretation of what was originally a Japanese product. Many shows could fall in this category. I think Avatar is similarly a Western anime. I don't know if you know, I kind of like that show. The visuals are very anime inspired, but the writing is more synonymous with Western cartoons, with a serialized format for a lot of the show. Panty & Stocking might be an Eastern cartoon. The visuals and structure of the show is inspired by Western animation, but the dialogue and pacing are undeniably rooted in anime. Okay, so I actually wrote this video before the whole Scott Pilgrim My Anime List controversy, which is pathetic to even call it that, to be honest. And I think it's important to say that whether a show classes as anime or cartoon, it doesn't actually matter. Like, really think about it, Twitter. What difference does that classification make? I'm talking about this not because the label is important, but it's about examining these different styles of storytelling and seeing where they appear, what strengths they have, and how they influence other works. It's a really interesting topic to think about, the evolution of art styles and structure in distinct settings, and how different styles can influence and inspire others in different cultural pots. It's just really fucking cool. And did I mention Alucard?